It's pretty disappointing from you, Kramzer. I'm fine with what me and Jason did, but I'm pretty disappointed in you.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Taste Like Music. Jason, Joe, and Krams are here. It is the beginning of a new month, Kramtober, as it has come to be called, here at the channel. Kram is picking all of the artists. He picked all the artists for the Patreon poll, which just wrapped up 2 days ago. Psychedelic Furs won, so they'll be joining the lineup. Who else we got coming up this month, Kram?
Hüsker Dü right now. We also got Echo and the Bunnymen, Cocteau Twins, and Psychedelic Furs. So it is just a monsters of 80s, but not like 80s pop kind of deal. It's cool kids college 80s stuff, much to Joe's chagrin. Of those four, Joe, who are you looking forward to the most? The Furs?
No, I think the Cocteau Twins. Just because I feel like I should like their style. I haven't heard much of them, but I feel like Elizabeth Fraser, that type of kind of dreamy stuff, I think it'll go over well with me. I don't know about the rest. I haven't really explored much of any of those bands.
What about you, Jace?
I think I'm looking forward to Echo the most. I know probably about half of their discography, and I like everything that I know, so looking forward to getting to the rest of it. Yeah, let's get to the task at hand today. That's Hüsker Dü. 6 studio albums. They do have a couple other things that we're not counting. Their debut record is like a live thing. We're not counting that. They have an EP that we're not counting. Just the proper studio records, of which there are 6. So Hüsker Dü is a band that I've tried to get into many, many times. I've heard probably parts of all of these records, sampling things, and I don't know, it never really clicked for me. So, I've heard things. I don't really know things that well going into the week. So how about you, Joe?
Can't believe I listened to Land Speed record for nothing. Didn't know that we weren't including it. So I listened to it at least twice. That's 30 minutes of my life gone. I didn't hate it though. Other than that, my knowledge of this band was like zero. Like one or two songs, whatever. I think Kramtober had a couple picks for song of the year. So I listened. That's it. That's all I got.
I feel like we've kind of done a lot more punky type of bands recently than we ever have in the past couple months. We did X. We did New York Dolls. Who else do we throw in there?
We did the Stooges. We did the Stranglers.
Yeah, what the hell's gotten into us? Weird.
We're trying to drive away our audience, it sounds like.
Yeah, I've known Hüsker Dü for a long time. I used to really be into them a lot more, probably about 10 years ago. I have listened to all of their albums except Warehouse. It was my first time getting to Warehouse. But if I'm being completely honest, I'd say 80 to 90% of my Hüsker Dü fandom primarily comes from my number one album on this list. Even though I had heard all of them before, that was kind of my attention was on what will be revealed as number one.
All right, we can get into it. If you're new to the channel, we cover a different band every week, rank all of their studio albums. We also give you a top 10 songs video the next day and have a third discussion video on Thursdays. If that's the kind of content you're into, make sure you hit the like button, subscribe, hit the bell for notifications, and let's roll. Let's do number 6. Who should start this week? Probably Joe, maybe me.
Nobody. I don't think anyone cares what I have to say about Hüsker Dü. I think they're awaiting Jason's because he could go either way. Or no, Jason's gonna hate it, but he'll be more interesting, I think, in his hatred. My number 7, and I know we're only doing 6, was Land Speed record, for the record. But I didn't hate it. I kind of was slow playing it there. I actually had it at 3 stars. So, which is probably higher than anyone else on earth, but I didn't hate it. My actual number 6 is going to upset a lot of people. I assume this is Kramzer's number 1, but I got New Day Rising. Yeah, I don't like it at all. I think when it comes down to it, I think the Grant Hart stuff is very good. And the Bob Mould stuff on this album is just the worst stuff he ever wrote. Like, I would take Land Speed Record over his songs on this album. I think they kind of suck. I think it worked a little bit better on Zen Arcade because there was a feel and a flow to the album. It's a concept album, so it has a story. And I think sort of the more abrasive stuff works there. But on here, I don't know. The vocal mix on some of these songs is just terrible. Anytime Bob Mould takes the vocals, it sounds like he's just trying to make the ugliest, most unpleasant tunes imaginable. I don't like a single one that he has full credit for. I mean, some of them don't have credits, at least on what I was looking, but just really disappointed in this one. I don't like Folklore. I like If I Told You, because that's a Hart one. It's got some nice harmonies underneath that chaotic electric guitar, some bass on there. The production for most of these albums I'm not crazy about. And I think the punk I like, stuff like X, the drums and the bass are so much more prominent in the mix. On these albums, a lot of it is just those fuzzed out guitars and the vocals. And that's like 90% of what I can hear. The drums kind of just, I barely noticed them. I think I noticed maybe one or two bass lines. And I'm sure they're nice. Like, the ones I noticed were quite excellent, but it's just so covered up by the guitar and the vocals that it's rough. I do like books about UFOs. I think it's real cute. A little more adventurous. Another Grant Hart, of course. And what really torpedoes the whole album is, it's like 15 songs. It's only 45 minutes, which is still too much for this type of music. But the last, How to Skin a Cat, What to Drink, and Plans I Make, 3 are just the worst songs I think I've ever heard. Just total crap. I hated it. It was like 10 extra minutes, completely unnecessary. Albums like this should be 25 minutes long, and it would be fine. It would be 3.5, 4 stars if I could cut out a bunch of these Bob Mould tunes. But I just really did not like this album very much, except for when Grant Hart was writing the tunes, and he doesn't have enough. So 2.5 stars for New Day Rising.
Damn. Thought Jason would be the one to have that down at the bottom or something, and probably have the later stuff, which is the more commercial, smoothed out stuff, toward the top. I think Jason should go last. I should go in the middle because I'm probably going to deliver kind of a classic lineup here. My number 6 is Warehouse Songs and Stories, 2.5. I care not to listen to this again. It's kind of their last hurrah. They're not getting along. They even redid some of the bass lines. Like, These Important Years, kind of corny. Like, they've grown up way too much. Some of that, like, excitable, bitter, like, raw emotion was pretty much gone. It's stripped away. It's all a little bit calculated, especially in the lyrics. It's one of those albums that has, like, perfectly fine, likable material. But in the concourse of their catalog, no new ground here. Nothing you haven't really heard before. There's not a lot of high moments, and that makes it a bit of a slog for me. Nothing to offer given its length. It's not absurdly long. It is a double album, but it kind of just feels like leftovers. Like, we got the time, we got the money, we got the contract. Let's put it out. They don't seem, like they have a fire under them to get stuff done. Some of it sounds really phoned in. And like, the playing is fine, but the whole attitude and style is pretty watered down. There's only a few like things that I mentioned in my notes that I like. Like, I like the guitar solo and You Could Be the One quite a bit, but they're missing that poetic piss and vinegar that they used to have. And like I said, some of it sounds really phoned in, like Hart singing and too much spice. And I usually like Hart, but I don't think he sounds happy to be part of Hüsker Dü on this album. And I think most of it is just kind of very forgettable. It's perfectly pleasant, but I don't need to ever re-listen to it again. 2.5, Warehouse Songs and Stories.
I am with Joe. It's New Day Rising at the bottom for me. This record has some of the worst production I've ever heard in my entire life. Mostly the fault of the guitars. The guitar tones on this record are so incredibly bad. It's hard to listen to. The songwriting's not good enough to overcome that kind of thing. They're from record 1 to the very end, they move more and more towards, traditional songwriting and pop melodies and type of stuff. And this continues that trajectory. Like, this is the third least poppy record in their catalog, but I don't know, just the guitar is so bad. It's so hard to listen to. They wanted to self-produce, and the SST was like, no, you're gonna work with our guy Spot again, and I just do not get it. And it's not only the guitars, there's a bunch of head scratching choices here. The vocal mix on 59 Times the Pain is bizarre. How to Skin a Cat and Plans I Make, like Joe said, just seem like experimental noise and undermine any melodic progress that they were making. Books About UFOs, I think, is the only track that really does anything for me. It's got a nice little bounce to it, a little melody. The guitars, even on that track, are just brutally harsh, so thin and fuzzy, just like ripping holes into your eardrums. Almost painful. I think it's a really weird step backwards for them. Like I said, they are working forward in their writing. I think their writing is still getting better here, but the step backwards in production is just absolutely brutal. I think it's pretty bad. 1.5 stars.
Okay, that's not too surprising. I thought maybe he'd go 2.5 even, but no, we're starting out real low, real low at the bottom. To be honest, none of the other, I mean, the next like 3 albums, I don't really like any of them. And I had a lot of trouble like trying to figure out which one I liked the least. I guess Flip Your Wig will be my number 5. I don't know. I didn't dislike this. I think the production's better. It sounds better. It's more accessible to move towards like college rock for the most part. But I mean, the production is better, but I still don't like it. I don't like just the way the guitars dominate everything. The vocals are so upfront, and the drums sound so weak. Like, it sounds like they're being played on like an electric drum kit or something. Like, they just don't make any impact. Same with the bass. I didn't notice a single note that was played on the bass. I just don't like it. I think there's more power pop, there's more college rock, but I like the Replacements version of this a lot better, a lot more interesting to me. And even though the fuzz is like a little slightly turned down, it's just not anything I'm going to come back to. I do like Green Eyes, and everything is pretty good, pretty catchy, some more melodic, creeping into the fuzz. You actually get a decent melody. And again, it comes down to like the Grant Hart songs versus the Bob Mould songs. And I like the Grant Hart songs. There's just not enough of them for me. And it's not enough to like elevate this album into something I'd want to sit through the Bob Mould songs to get through. And like, I mean, everyone rags on the Baby song, but it's like 46 seconds. Who cares? But I just don't really care for any of these songs that much, other than Green Eyes. So 3 stars. It's not terrible, but it's just like, it makes no impact on my life. I'm just gonna forget about this album forever.
I also have Flip Your Wig, number 5. I've got it at 3 stars. I think it's good. Definite focus more on like power pop, punk kind of hooks and riffs and compositions and that college rock, college radio sound. Everything sounds kind of different. And like their songwriting is just so hook driven compared to anything else before it. The guitar tune is smoothed out. You get some of those like more gated drums, far less mess everywhere. And I think through that process, they lose a little bit of what makes them great. I do like Green Eyes a good bit. I don't really like the way they're mixing the vocals here. I don't really think it sounds much like Bob or Grant, like compared to the first 3 records, especially on the Hart songs. I don't dislike this album. I think there's a lot to like at times, but I think it's slightly disappointing to me, just like getting a little bit too domesticated with their vision. I do like Divide and Conquer a lot, and Games I like a lot. There's a big sense of melody on a lot of those songs. For like a punk or alternative band, they really are great at melodies sometimes. I think I just want the pendulum to swing farther back to like the messy punk stuff. And they're kind of like on a similar trajectory of like the Replacements, where they kind of just get cleaner and cleaner and cleaner as they go. like, you know, after this album, you can pretty much see where like the Goo Goo Dolls' first few albums would just pick up like where Hüsker Dü and the Replacements kind of left off and stuff. Yeah, like Flexible Flyer, Super Poppy, you can see that trend. So I think there are good songs on here. I'm just not crazy about it in like the vein of their direction. So just 3 stars for Flip Your Wig, but I think it's good. Number 5.
All right, my number 5 is the debut, Everything Falls Apart. The debut, that's not really their debut. They had a live EP, whatever it was before this. So I think, like I said, with every release, Hüsker Dü became more and more musically refined. So this one, going back to the beginning, you know, I think it's their fastest, their punkiest album. You just basically call this one straight up hardcore almost. Musically, that's not my thing at all, but there are some things I like about this record. For this genre in 1983, I think it's pretty well recorded. I think, you know, this band will be responsible for some of the worst guitar tones ever recorded, but here they are pretty good. I think the guitars sound good. The drumming on this record is solid. I think the drums sound good. And I think there are some glimpses, even though they're just playing like this fast punky stuff, of like some more advanced musical ability. There's some pretty cool guitar solos on it. They're more like guitar bursts than like longer traditional like classic rock guitar solos, but pretty cool stuff on Blah 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 and Punch Drunk and Bricklayer, Afraid of Being Wrong. There's this weird cover of Sunshine Superman by Donovan, which I think is pretty cool. I think the title track is pretty melodic. So overall, it's not in my musical wheelhouse. I'm never going to be a huge fan of the shoutier vocals, but I think it achieves its goal, captures the energy of the band, which is good. You know, I think we've listened to some stuff for this channel that's kind of supposed to have this kind of energetic, raw feel that doesn't get enough of it onto the recording. And I think they do a better job than some of the other things we've heard. I don't hate this record. It's not my favorite sort of music. So 2 stars.
All right. My number 4 is going to be Candy Apple Gray. This is an okay album. It's still 3 stars though, because I don't know. I don't like what they're doing. It's like like Kranzer was saying with Flip Your Wig, like, I don't know, this one feels like too far in the other direction. They're losing a little of the energy. I believe this is their major label debut. Production's a lot slicker. And I think the songwriting's better for sure. A lot more melody. Grant Hart has 4 of the 10 tracks, so it's good. But I think Bob Mould is becoming less annoying and less abrasive. It's weird. He started out in the punk, which I kind of like, and he got like really annoying and abrasive. And then he kind of swings back to like melody and sort of like almost like proto Pixies kind of stuff, which I definitely like more than that middle abrasive guitar fuzzed out stuff. You know, they change up the tempo a lot. There's some slower songs like Too Far Down, Hardly Getting Over It, No Promise Have I Made. I Don't Want to Know If You Were Lonely is very nice and melodic, and they have some funny pinch harmonics, which I don't know, I always just associate that with Zakk Wylde, so it's kind of funny to hear it in like a college rock album. Eiffel Tower High, I like. Good pop bounce to it. I hate the vocals on No Promise Have I Made. Kind of sucks. I don't know. I don't really have much to say about this album other than it's okay, and I don't really remember it and don't really care. 3 stars.
All right. My number 4 is Everything Falls Apart. Number 3, or number 4, it's 3 stars. I agree with Jason. Great drumming, great hardcore fast punkiness, shouting at you. It comes right at you. It's got fury and piss and poetic piss and vinegar. I think it sounds good. I like the guitar noise a lot. I think it's a really good balance on the record of clarity and distortion. It's just like this blitzkrieg of fun adrenaline. I think it's broken up really nicely by that Sunshine Superman cover. I love the guitar tone on the title track a lot. I never have a problem with any of the guitar tones. I like it kind of wiry and, you know, loose and just really kind of noisy and crazy. Wheels has this really cool, almost like post-punk kind of dire circumstance to it. I like Gravity a lot. it's pretty straightforward for what it is, but yeah, like Jason said, it kind of establishes what they will be and what they can build off of. So I don't have much else to say. It's got a lot of good songs on it. It's like 22 minutes or whatever, and it just gets right to the point. It's right in your face. It's just like getting, like a firework in the face. And that's that. It's a good album. It's a good listen. There you go.
Okay, my number 4 is Zen Arcade. I think there's some definite growth as songwriters on this record. Lyrically, they're getting a lot more interesting. You get this overarching story about a kid running away from home on this one, a little bit of a concept record in that way. You get some more sonic variety with an acoustic tune like Never Talking to You Again. Somewhere is kind of cool. It's got like these almost like Beatle-esque reversed guitar effects on it. Pink Turns to Blue almost sounds like them covering some kind of lost 60s pop tune, even though it was in fact written by Grant Hart. It's got a cool melodic solo section in it as well. But for all the growth and positive things that I think that are happening with Hüsker Dü at this time, I think this record tries hard to sabotage itself, mainly in 2 ways. I think the double album format is not suited for this type of like heavy, punky, I don't know if you'd still call it hardcore at this point, but whatever Hüsker Dü are, I think it's just kind of exhausting to listen to for 70 minutes. It's kind of a large dose. I think this type of music, there's a reason a lot of punk songs are really short. I think that's just how those songs function the best. And stretching it out over this much time is kind of difficult. The second big issue is this is where the beginning of those really abrasive guitar tones come in. I think this is where they start using the MXR distortion, and they've got these really thinned out fuzzy tones, and they're just really, really rough on the ears. Doesn't make the 70 minutes any easier, and it's a little bit difficult to listen to. 2 stars for Zen Arcade.
Brutal. Jason is laying the hammer down on everyone's hopes and dreams. Hüsker Dü is getting crushed here on Taste Like Music. Even Kramtober is not really bringing the energy that I thought he would for this. I don't know why he even picked him. I got the debut, Everything Falls Apart. I'm moving to 3.5 stars because it's 18 minutes long, which is fantastic. That is the perfect length for a Hüsker Dü album. I love the lockstep drums, guitar, and bass on From the Gut. I think that's super gnarly. It's lo-fi, but it's punky and fast. And there's this rising guitar line in there that's surprisingly catchy, and there's some cool harmonic stuff going on. It's a lot deeper than you'd expect from Hüsker on their debut. And not everything's great. I mean, blah blah blah. It's what it is. It's 2 minutes of just annoying sort of punkiness that doesn't really do anything. You got a couple 30-second songs, which it's fine. Punch Drunk, Bricklayer, it's cool. I love the cover of Sunshine Superman. I think that's so much fun. I love when pop or punk goes pop. Just a perfect cover, perfect sequencing as well, sticking it right in the middle. And I think after that, things get a little even more interesting. Signals from Above is good. Everything Falls Apart, title track. I like the guitar tone a lot on there. It's proto. It's almost like proto emo, proto pop punk. Like it's got this like weird, almost like melodic tendencies underneath like all the noise and stuff, which is pretty cool. Wheels, just a bunch of dissonant guitar. Target and Obnoxious, kind of standard, just 1 minute, 1.5 minutes of just like pure energy and adrenaline. Like that's fine on a 19 minutes, sorry, undersold it. 19 minutes and 22-second album. That stuff doesn't bother you because it's so fast, it just like hits you and it's gone. But it's not obnoxious, it's not annoying. It works. And then Gravity, I think, is a killer tune at the end, a little more complex. Bass line's kind of clashing a little bit with what the guitars are doing, but there's a cool guitar solo stuffed in there, and not bad. I like this album. I'd probably listen to it again. It's 3.5 stars, but it's 18, 19 minutes, so I could throw this on. I'd be fine with it. So I was impressed with Everything Falls Apart. 3.5 stars.
Right, my number 3, I've got Candy Apple Gray, and Now the Enthusiasm Comes. I got 4 stars on this. I think it's great. And it's like the shift I don't want to happen really with them, but they do it so well. I think the songwriting on here is just really good. I think Mould is able to find like this new way of expressing himself rather than doing like the shouting and like the fury and all that. And he like really has some real eloquent moments on this. It's kind of a different mix. It's a little bit money and a little bit rich right off the bat with Crystal. There's some really cool fierce guitar there. Don't Want to Know If You Are Lonely is awesome. Just these really good, like refined, well-written songs. So it's kind of like the better older brother or younger brother of Flip the Wig, like everything that they tried to go for on Flip the Wig. Much better sounding. And I would say how it succeeds is like the punkier songs on here are more punky and better. And then like the softer touches are also much better. The only song on here I'm not really crazy about is Sorry Somehow, which I think is a little too basic and plotting. But everything else I think is just really well done. I love the way he sounds on Too Far Down. I absolutely adore Hardly Getting Over It. I think that song is just absolutely wonderful. Dead Set on Destruction has some really cool guitar work. Like they're kind of simplifying things, but really focusing on making the songs the best they can be and communicate them the best they can do. Eiffel Tower High is super cool. Sounds like kind of the blueprint for what like a hold steady would become in a big way. Yeah, I think this song just pretty much, or this album, except for 1 or 2 songs, really just hits on just great songwriting, great playing, and just really expressive, emotive stuff in a very different way than they used to be. Like the emotions for Hüsker Dü are what I usually love about them, and this one is so different than New Day Rising and Zen Arcade. But I think it hits. I think it hits hard. I vibe with it. 4 stars, Candy Apple Gray.
All right, my number 3 is Warehouse Songs and Stories, the band's final album, the band's second double album. Mould and Hart not getting along quite so well by this point, but sonically does have a pretty similar sound to the previous record, Candy Apple Gray. Even though, a lot of the songs still have a lot of melody, I do feel like there is also a slight return to some of their earlier roots as well, though. You're a Soldier is really loose and played probably a little faster than it should be. In fact, I think a lot of the songs could probably be better if they weren't speeding through them quite so much. It does feel a little rushed, a little just kind of like, let's get the hell out of here type of thing, like Kram was sort of saying about it. They doesn't feel like anyone wants to be there. However, I do think there's some good stuff here. Could You Be the One, I think, is pretty strong. Mould getting the lead single this time, whereas Hart had it, I believe, definitely on the last record, maybe on the last few. And I think just overall, I think Mould's songwriting is starting to catch up on these last 2 records to Hart, who I think was pretty far ahead of him early on. She Floated Away almost sounds like the wreck of the Edmund Fitzgerald. So there's kind of, there's some different styles being worked in here. I like that it has a more refined sound than their early albums. The guitar tones aren't like a major problem anymore. It's like more listenable now. It's still moderately melodic. It's just a lot of it feels a little underwritten and the performances feel rushed. And again, it's a double album. It's just too long to have all these like slightly undercooked type of tunes. I think it's fine, but for having 20 tracks, very little of it rises to the surface. So 2.5 stars for me on that one.
At my number 2, I got Zen Arcade. And while it does have sort of that same feeling as New Day Rising with the guitar tones and the heaviness, and Bob Mould's just total rejection of anything that sounds good, I think it works as a concept album. I think it's greater than the sum of its parts. I like a lot of what's going on here. It is far, far too long for an album like this. And the stuff I like the best, of course, it's the Grant Hart stuff. It starts a little rough. I do like Something I Learned Today. Kind of sets the story in motion. You got Broken Home, Broken Heart, Never Talking to You Again. Chartered Trips is okay. And then it gets like into just crap. Dreams Reoccurring, Decision Time, Hare Krishna, Beyond the Threshold, Pride. Like these are all just really distorted, really grating, that incredibly heavy guitar tone. It's just too much. Like it's all in a row. Like mix in some Grant Hart. Like give me some of that Grant Hart goodness in there. You got to wait till, what's going on, which is kind of weird for a Grant Hart tune, but I do like Masochism World, Standing by the Sea at the end of side 2. It gets pretty cool. And side 3, I think, is pretty great throughout. Somewhere, One Step at a Time, Pink Turns to Blues, great. And even the Bob Mould stuff, Newest Industry, might be my favorite tune from him. Tooth Fairy and the Princess, Turn on the News on side 4 is good. I don't need 15 minutes, whatever, 14 minutes of Recurring Dreams. Seems like filler of the highest degree there, but I guess they needed like an entire 4th side. So why not go for the 14-minute, just noodly, noisy fuzz, whatever. And there's a lot more interesting stuff in here. Like Somewhere has a cool like Roger McGuinn raga like guitar. It's just the aural variety is so much more interesting on this than on New Day Rising, where it's just so harsh and grating the entire time. Like there's much more like little elements like the tinkling piano and Pink Turns to Blue, those high-pitched vocals, and it's just more interesting to me. Even the harder, harsher stuff. Like I don't love songs like Pride, but it sounds like death metal Jimi Hendrix or something. Like there's just familiarity to it, and they're kind of twisting it around, which is cool. I'll Never Forget You has like an Iron Maiden bass line. That's pretty cool. There's like a little metal thrash undercurrent on some of this stuff, which is cool. And I mean, if you cut it down to the best songs, easy 4 stars, but it's too long. It's way too friggin' long. And so I'm sticking with 3.5 for Zen Arcade. It's a cool album, very cool, just hard to listen to.
Zen Arcade is my number 2. I got it at 4 stars. I think it's great. I think I used to have it probably a little higher, although I don't think I ever had an official rating. It did sour a little bit with me, but it's an awesome punky double album. But the thing with like their punky style is there's like a beauty and a poetry to it, which I really like. I think it's much more expressive and dimensional and comprehensive than a lot of music, and its meaning and just in their song composition. I think there's great bass work on here. I think it's a huge influence on alternative rock. It's very musical. I love the opener. I learned something today. Love the way Broken Home, Broken Heart closes with those big drums. You get a little bit of acoustic breakup with like Never Talking to You Again. There's always like a messy prettiness to these guitar parts, which I love. So I have no problem with guitars ever in this catalog. And the whole album with like the youthful story is great. Like he's a runaway, and then he thinks he has it figured out, but he loses his true love to drugs. He finds himself lost again, and like it's all a dream and all this stuff. It's very feverish. I like it. And the way they do Dreams Recurring is great. Really reminds you of like really bad night terrors and stuff. Indecision Time is a really cool straight up punker. I love what's going on. I think it's great with its eerie dissonance, very Sonic Youthy, probably what Joe doesn't like about it. Feels Betrayed by Grant Hart. Standing by the Sea is wonderful. To me, this is kind of like the wall for the punk genre, where like it's just kind of this big epic double album story. I love the guitar tone and Newest Industry. I think side 4 is cool with the big 14-minute epic Recurring Dream. So you get a little bit of a lot of different stuff here. There's hardcore punk, there's experimental stuff, there's really good songwriting, there's psychedelia. It's a great album, 4 stars with a really good concept behind it. Zen Arcade.
Okay, my number 2 is Flip Your Wig. SST finally let the band produce themselves. And man, what a joy that opening guitar is. Just the fact that it's not slicing your eardrums to shreds after New Day Rising. It's just like a breath of fresh air. Joe's right. The drum sounds on this record are really weird. I don't know exactly what they're doing. They got like some kind of delay on them or something. There's like an echo. It's weird. But I find that way less distracting, and I find it takes away from the music way less than those guitar tones did on the previous record. Doesn't bother me too much. You get some of those nice, like almost rockabilly type guitar leads back from stuff that they were doing on the first record. I don't know. This kind of feels like where they were heading after Zen Arcade, and then you just get this weird blip in the radar in between. But I think this is a nice progression. You know, you don't have to, squint your ears to hear the melody. The songs like come to the front more on this record finally, Everything, I think, is a good example of that. Still really high energy, though. It's not like they're just doing straight pop. They're still a punk band, but you're getting some more song melody forward type stuff. I think Bob Mould's vocals on this record see a big improvement. Whether or not he actually became a better singer, or it just comes down to the production being a lot more clear, I just think you can hear him a lot better. He sounds a lot more forceful and confident. Makes no sense at all. Probably his first really good pop song that he wrote for the band, I think. Flexible Flyer, I think it's a cool Grant Hart song. Almost sounds a little countryish if you were like to strip it away down to everything, just like guitar and melody. I think it's significantly better than anything they had done before. Much better production, better musicianship, more tuneful, more melodic, but it still rocks. I don't think it feels compromised in any way. It's not full of just like pop ballads or syrupy tunes. I think it's still a pretty heavy, punky record, just much more well done and better songwriting. So I got this at 3 stars.
Right. Number 1 is going to be Warehouse Songs and Stories, their final album from 1987. I don't know if it's anything to get like excited about this album, but this is the most songs that I like. I think Bob Mould is getting pretty close to what he'd be doing with Sugar and like his solo stuff, which I do like better than anything Hüsker Dü ever did. And I think the song, it's just the songwriting's better. Ice Cold Ice is great. Up in the Air is great. She Floated Away has a cool like waltz to it. Maybe a jig. It's a jig or a waltz, but it's some snazzy drumming. It's a nice change up. Still got like that feedback and noise, but there's some like cool underlying stuff that makes it more interesting. Almost like a weird version of like Cosmic Country. And this one sounds very college rock. Like this is pretty close to REM at times, especially on Up in the Air, like those backing vocals chiming in, like that is just completely REM. Which I don't mind REM. They're college rock kings, so go for those guys a little bit. It's too long, of course. This band does just not know how to self-edit. 68 minutes. And that takes it away because there are, it is a bit of a drag by the end, even though my second favorite song is, the 19th track on here. But I think I agree with Jason where there's maybe too many songs where it's like almost something new and almost like a complete song, but it just doesn't always feel like they're writing like full melodies and like full compositions. So I guess it's 3.5 stars. I was gonna go 4, but I don't think I'm ready to do that. So I'm gonna give old Hüsker Dü the 3.5. Kiss of Death. They join Three Dog Night and a bunch of other bands that I don't care about. Though I do like Hüsker Dü more than Three Dog Night. But I don't know, the albums wise, it's tough. I like songs from this band much better, much more than I think I enjoyed the whole album experience, just because the hell 68 minutes for a friggin' like why would you do that? Make a 35-minute album like a normal college rock band.
All right, my number 1 is New Day Rising. I've got it at 4.5. I love the opener. I love the guitar tones. I love the energy. The noise is great, and the melodies just woven into that distortion. I think it's their bread and butter. Again, they write these fairly beautiful melodies, just like present them on with like these dirty razors. The Girl Who Lives on Heaven Hill is awesome. There's a crazy cool solo on it, and there's just so much passion here by everyone. Mould is really singing his heart out in his songs. I Apologize is a great hook. Like you're really getting their sensibilities of being like just this ugly pop punk band kind of. I think Folklore is really great. Just this natural musicality to it while just having all of this chaos and energy and just burning sensation going on. They're letting like more of their mainstream influences saturate here a bit, which I think is good. The songs are just really good. I love Celebrated Summer. There's like these really nice, joyful, youthful sensations that are just like twisted kind of and like just like a darker sense. Perfect Example does the same thing right after. There's like a sunniness to a lot of these songs, which I think is so cool, like in terms of psychic warfare. I love the piano in books about UFOs. That one almost has like a Replacements vibe. You know, Zen Arcade, I said, was sort of like the wall of like the alternative punk genre. This one might be like the Highway 61 revisited. I don't know what you're talking about. It's great. I do think the first half is a good bit better than the second, hence maybe just 4.5. But I like the last batch of songs too. Just think it tapers off a little bit. But this is just one of those albums where it's like everything's just clicking. It's everything that they do well in their skill set. All of their attributes are like cranked up. It's exactly what you want from the best of Hüsker Dü. And a lot of the songs in my top 10 tomorrow are from this album. So 4.5, I think it's really great. There you go. New Day Rising is the best. You could say Zen Arcade maybe, but this Warehouse thing is nonsense. Candy Apple Gray is coming here, it seems, but
yeah, Candy Apple Gray is my favorite. This was their first for a major label. The opening track, Crystal, features some really aggressive vocals from Bob Mould, almost as if to say, hey, just because we're on a major label doesn't mean we're selling out. There was always so much insecurity about that sort of thing back in the 80s and 90s, but it's not a very good introduction to the record. I think it sounds pretty shitty. The mix is weird, but things improve greatly from there. Don't Want to Know If You're Lonely, I think probably one of their most complete recordings that they ever made. I just think it's just a good song. The mix is good. The guitar tones are pretty cool on it. So just an all-around good song. The album's other single, Sorry Somehow, I think has a really sweet melody. Pretty good song there. Dead Set on Destruction, I think, is another great tune. Almost jangly. They get the tambourine going on that one. Overall, I think Grant Hart just blowing Bob Mould out of the water on most of this record. Mould's tracks are a little dirge-like, especially like Too Far Down and Hardly Getting Over It, which I think are fine songs, and I appreciate like he's bringing out the acoustic guitar and, you know, bringing some other textures to the album, but just overall far less energy, and the melodies aren't quite as strong as the Grant Hart tunes on this one. But they do give you nice balance having the two of them there. I think it's a nice kind of foil for each other. The best song of Mould's on the record, probably the closer, All This We've Done For You. I don't know, this one I'm really close to going 3.5 on it, but I just don't think it's quite there, mainly because of the opener, Crystal. I think is just a terrible way to start the record. But it's not a bad record. Candy Apple Gray is my number one.
I knew no one was gonna love it, but this is just preposterous, really.
I want to like Hüsker Dü a lot more than I do. I've always wanted to like them more because they're so adjacent to like other things that I like. You got the Minneapolis connection with the Replacements. Seems like they come up in conversations with like Dinosaur Jr. and the Pixies all the time, but I just think they're a lot closer to like Black Flag and stuff that I am not at all interested in. So just not really my thing.
Yeah, they definitely fall outside of like my preferred punk type of music, which, you know, X, stuff like that. I mean, I like the Replacements a lot more than Hüsker Dü. And just looking at all the reviews, like all these albums are like 5 stars for every single critic. So who cares what we think? Doesn't matter. They've already gotten all their critical acclaim. And it must have just been because back in the day, like nothing sounded like this, because I just can't imagine these reviews, like looking back on this stuff. Like it's just very ordinary. I can see the like influence on a ton of bands, hugely influential, obviously, but as far as songwriting goes, it's pretty ordinary stuff, average at best. You weren't even that high. You didn't even have a single 5-star. You give 5 stars to everything these days.
I don't think that's true.
It's pretty disappointing from you, Kramtober. I'm fine with what me and Jason did, but I'm pretty disappointed in you.
All right. Let us know what you think of Hüsker Dü down in the comments, how you rank the records, what you think of our lists, all that good stuff. Make sure you hit the like button, subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so, hit the bell for notifications, and check the video description for all kinds of info. You'll find links to Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, website, Patreon, and our merch store, as well as a list of upcoming bands that we'll be covering shortly on the channel. Thanks for watching. and we will see you in the next one.